Hello, hi, and welcome back to another build order tutorial video here on my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a TvP build that I did on stream. If you guys don't already know, I do stream 6 days a week. Link in the description down below. Feel free to hit us up with a follow. It would be much appreciated as always. So this build is going to be a Widowmine drop opening followed up by 3rd CC macro play. This is probably one of my favorite maps to do this on, as Death Aura has a very easily defendable 3rd base. We've got the ramp leading up to the 3rd, and the other 2 entrances are also ramps. So any map with a bunch of ramps leading up to you is always going to be a really sick defender's advantage. So I always feel really safe to play macro and be a little bit greedier on a map like this. So taking a look at the build, we do go barracks and then gas. We want the later gas because there is going to be a definite emphasis on a faster command center. Since this is a macro build, SCV production is going to be the most important part for sure. So saturating that gas to 3 when it finishes. Our 17 scout going across the map. The reason I've been going 17 scout instead of 18 or 19 scout is mostly because proxy void ray meta is just so annoying right now. A lot of protoss is going for that proxy void ray build. And getting a 17 scout just makes it a lot easier to defend because my SCV actually arrives on this half of the map before I build my command center. So if my SCV was arriving right now and I saw no nexus here, I could very easily just not build my command center in the natural, and I can build it in the main base instead, which would be significantly easier to defend any kind of proxy build with. So that's kind of my own reasoning for that scout timing. The SCV itself, though, we do see the nexus, we do see the gateway in the main base. The gateway in the main means that we're just simply not getting proxied with a gateway on our half of the map, so that's good news for us. It means we can just take our command center happily as soon as we get rid of this probe here. Always pull 2 SCVs to get rid of the probe because 1 SCV is just not enough to get rid of it quickly enough. You want to make sure that the probe is like gone by the time you have 400 minerals, so 2 SCVs always. We do get a Reaper, of course. The Reaper is going to... The Reaper would usually check for proxies. However, this game, since we're not getting proxied by anything, the Reaper is just going to kind of cross the map. I think I actually bring it back to defend with just because I like to have it at home versus the first adept. Barracks also follows up with 2 Marines, and we get a factory, as well as our second depot before the factory, of course. So Reaper's coming back home. I don't even know why I actually sent the Reaper across the map. I think that was a mistake. I really usually just like to keep the Reaper here, because if the Reaper was at home right now, this probe would be dead. And I really like to kill free probes, so I'm going to clock that as a mistake. Second gas guys are coming up after the factory. I did get kind of lucky. I get the probe anyways. The protoss could have easily like taken a weird path home and avoided the Reaper completely if he wanted to, but they did not, so we get to kill the probe. So 2 Marines, reactor. Once I get the 2 Marines out, I like to take kind of a forward position on the ramp here. The reason for this is when the Adept crosses the map, you can usually get a really good trade on the Adept and even kill it sometimes. It really depends on if the Protoss is paying attention or not. But you also have the option to drop a Reaper Grenade too, so the Reaper Grenade can be used to kind of kill this Adept if you wanted. I mismicroed a little bit, and I took too much damage on the Reaper, or I would have gone for that grenade. But that's totally fine too, because we also deny scouting information, which is the whole point of the second Marine, is to deny scouting information. So back at home, we're going to be building a Hellion out of the factory when the factory finishes. The reason for the Hellion is because the Hellion is going to join the Reaper and cross the map to scout. A very common thing people have been doing is building that Reaper to scout. The reason why it's so effective is because it kind of adds redundancy to the scout. So if you were to lose the Reaper, you still have a Hellion. And you also have the ability to do probe damage in the mineral line with the Hellion if you get the scout off quickly. So something that I've been a fan of, very much so. Once the Hellion finishes, you do start getting Widow Mines. And when the Starport finishes, you do start building your first medevac. I did mess up, and I did lose my Reaper for free, but like I said, because we have our Hellion, we have a backup scout, which is awesome. So we're going to cross the map with that. We are going to build 2 Widow Mines, and like I said, that medevac coming out, and we're going to be going for a Widow Mine drop. Now, if I did keep my Reaper alive and I were to go into his main base and I saw a Stargate opener, it's important to note that I would not go through with this Widow Mine drop. The reason being, if they go Phoenix, Phoenix will actually just shut down any Widow Mine drop without you doing any damage at all. So it's very risky to do that versus Stargate. This game I actually don't even get to scout because I lost the Reaper. So you could argue that it's kind of risky for me to even go for this at all. But I was just kind of taking a risk this game because I felt like I was safe enough to do it. So Command Center is going to come down as soon as we have 400 minerals. This usually happens right before the medevac comes out, as a little bit of a timing reminder for you. And then we throw down 2 tech labs on our production facilities. The Hellion could not get into scout, so we just kind of leave it at the 3rd base. And also, the only other thing that we need to worry about is DT, because that's the only other thing that can kind of end the game quickly because we didn't scout it. So how we counter this is we actually open up with Raven out of the starport, and while the Raven builds, we just save energy on our command centers. DTs don't typically show up till around the 440, 450 mark, so it's okay not to have any scan energy right now, but right now I am starting to save that up in case the DTs do pop. While scouting with this medevac, I do get extremely lucky and I do see a War Prism. So I already know in my head that this is going to be either DT, Zealot all in, Zealot Stalker all in, basically anything involving gateways. So I immediately chuck down a Raven, and I also am going to build a bunker in a second here. The bunker is mainly for a Zealot all in. Medevac is going to try to sneak in here to do some probe damage as best it can. And I also throw down a eBay. The reason for the eBay is in case it's also DT. And you might be asking, why build an eBay if you're building a Raven? And the answer is pretty simple. The Raven can't cover the natural and the main base at the same time. So versus DT play, I like to build a turret in the natural and use the Raven in the main base. Or you could also build a turret in the main and then use the Raven in the natural. It's really up to you. Widow Mine drop going in. Gonna try to do some damage to the probes. Our opponent wasn't really paying attention here, so we get to do a lot of free damage. How many probes was that? 10 probes, not bad. So we are building that Raven. We do get a tank out of the factory. I think I should be building a second tank in a second here. I saw the War Prism fly in, and I scanned before he even dropped the units, because there's no reason a War Prism would fly directly into the center of your mineral line unless he was going to drop DTs. So I kind of just knew. And also, I did see the Twilight, so part of my mind was also thinking DTs are a really big possibility at this point. I do have that bunker to fall back to in case anything goes wrong. And I did have to scan in the natural because the DT got to the nat before my Raven popped out. But that's totally okay. We traded some damage for damage on his half of the map. It's kind of hard to perfectly come out of this without taking any damage anyways, so nothing to be too hard on myself about. Medevac gets to come home too, which is an excellent bonus. Keeping the medevac alive is always great for us. And I guess I will rewind a second here to note the barracks timing, since we didn't really touch on that. Basically, once the tank and the Raven are building is when you would throw down your 2 barracks. The only reason they're a little late is because of the eBay. That's the only thing that I use to delay them with. And the bunker. I forgot to say the bunker. So as soon as I get 300 minerals here, I will throw down 2 barracks. And then the next thing I'm looking to build is 2 refineries, and then hopefully a second eBay to join this eBay so that we can start our 1-1. I did build a turret in both mineral lines. Not super necessary. You only need 1 turret. I don't really know why I built 2. I guess I was just trying to be extra safe. Our opponent tries to use Archons in the War Prism to deal damage, but we are very, very set up to deal with this. We got tanks, we got Ravens with Disable, and we've got Marines. So we're looking really well so far. 2 more barracks coming down as soon as we have money, as well as reactor on the starport and factory, so we can build constant Widow Mines and constant Medivacs. I do chuck down another turret here, maybe over here. Nope. Just in the natural, just to kind of push off the War Prism a little bit more. Archons in a War Prism can be scary if they get inside your mineral line. They can deal a lot of damage really quickly. So always be kind of wary of that to the best of your ability. The timing that I do go for in TvP with this build is I like to push out when I have 4 Medivacs. The mistake I did make is I did not build a second eBay. Instead, I just went 1 upgrade at a time. So that means I'm only going to have +1 attack right now. I should have +1 armor as well. But because of that mistake, we don't. But not the hugest deal in the world. It's not going to stop us from trying to do damage. So we do try to cross the map here. Back at home, we do start building our depots to wall off our bases as best we can. Depot wall offs are incredibly important in TvP, especially because of zealots. If zealots run into a wall, it's a lot better than zealots running into your army, dealing damage to your marines. So definitely want to position your depots as best you can. On the other side of the map, we do see 2 Colossus. This is not necessarily a fight that you can't take. We do have a Raven, and the Raven is extremely valuable in a situation like this because of the ability for the Raven to disable the Colossus. The Raven, this game doesn't have that much energy because I believe I used a disable on the War Prism earlier. So the Raven should have enough for 2 disables right now, but because it doesn't, that means we're not going to really be able to take a really good fight here. You can try to go for a disable on the Colossus, but it doesn't really work out too well for us, I believe. Let me pause the game here to make sure I didn't miss anything else. Nope, we're just building production, getting our bases saturated, same stuff. So I go for the disable on the 1 Colossus, siege the tank. Try my best to take a fight. I really believe the protoss could have been a little bit more aggressive versus me here. But he took the safe play and he backed up his ramp, which is totally fine too. There's no way I'm ever going to push up a ramp into 2 Colossus, so simply I just back away, go home. I should start to build some Vikings here so that we can start to deal with the Colossus as well. Since our upgrade is halfway done, we start our eBay and armory so that we can get 2-2 as quickly as possible. And also I do go for a Ghost Academy this game before my 4th base, as well as a second starport before my 4th base. I don't usually like to do that, but I guess I was going for more of a timing attack this game, since I felt like I could actually do something to my opponent based on the opening. So we are going to be taking 4 Vikings at a time, as well as getting our ghosts out. Right now our protoss is trying to be aggressive versus us. So we don't even build our command center on location. We just take our 4th base on the high ground, nice and safely. So looking at home, yeah, we're just macroing, getting supply block constantly as we do as a Terran player. And just kind of waiting. So this is kind of the thing I mentioned earlier on, is that Deathara is really good at defending 3 base for this reason. The Protoss doesn't really have any good options to attack me. He can come up this ramp where I have Widow Mines and my army would be positioned in a concave. He can come up this ramp, which is supply depot walled with Widow Mines, and my army is in a concave. Or he could try War Prism, which is covered by turrets here and here. So we're really just well defended. And the Protoss kind of realizes that, kind of takes a look at our defensive setup here and says, I'm going to not bother with that right now. Which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. That way we can get our 2-2. And we can build up our Viking count. And we can get our Ghost count going as well. Basically setting ourselves up for a really nice late game. My energy is a little bit high. I could be dropping more mules. for sure. So I do float out my 4th once that finishes. The 4th base is still somewhat defendable on this map. We do have a pretty nice choked off area here, as well as the ramp to the right. So what I do for this setup is I put my bio on one hockey and I put my Vikings on a second hockey. And I try my best to use the Vikings to target the Colossus without getting hit by the Archons or the Stalkers. Although I believe I fail pretty horribly at that. But when you have this many Vikings, it's okay to take a little bit of damage because they still get to kill the Colossus before they die anyways. So our opponent does try to go for a fight. I EMP the Archons. Vikings are already dealing free damage. And I try my best to keep my bio as far away from these Colossus as possible. Because you don't want those Colossus to get any shots off if you can, ideally. Vikings are already dealing insane amounts of damage. Colossus really did nothing to me this whole fight. And I just kind of stim ahead and try to capitalize on the fact that the protoss took a bad fight there. Keeping in mind that there is a disruptor, so I have to be careful for that. Planetary is your 4th, as always. Upgrades on the way. We want to get enhanced shockwaves for the Ghost Academy as soon as we can so that our EMP radius can be a little bit bigger. And then basically just continuing unit production as best we can. We're very much set up very well for a nice late game right now, so there's nothing much back at home to macro. I do get to pick off a free Colossus as well, which is great. Took a really good fight there. And this is kind of the strength of this build and why I wanted to show it to you guys, because you're just so easily able to get to 4 base safely and securely. And I just really like to play late game TvP. I think it's a really good learning experience as opposed to playing the same 2 base all in over and over again. So I will fast forward to the final fight here. Something we do add on after the 4th is 3 more barracks. 1, 2, 3. And eventually we will throw down a 5th command center as we kind of get money for it. Our Protoss opponent goes for 1 more attack, but since he just lost all of his Colossus for free, I kind of identify this as a really easily takeable fight. So I go for a full-on surround here. And there's literally only 2 disruptors in this army, so this is the easiest fight that anybody could take ever. Especially when the Protoss kills their own zealots. So taking a fight versus any disruptor, you never want to come in from one angle. You always want to come in from as many angles as possible. So even if this Protoss did have, 4 or 5 disruptors, we would still be okay. That was a big shot. But even with that big shot, we were just so far ahead from the failed aggression earlier, thanks to our 3cc setup. So I hope you guys get a general feel of this build. Feel free to leave any comments down below, and I will take a look and get back to you in 2 to 3 business days, as always. So thank you for watching, and keep on keeping on.